We are live, and I've been doing a lot of these lately, man. But I'm really looking forward to this one, unlike all the other ones that I didn't look forward to. I'm looking forward to this one for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's with my buddy Dan Stewart, who I will introduce in a second here, and we'll get going with that. But like we say all the time, guys, we're doing these a little bit different style. You know, I did the happy hour with Jared James, and I did the CEOs of major brands and those kinds of things. And then I ran out of important people, so I was like, who can I call? No, I said, I'm saying that because you and I were talking the other day.
Hold on a minute, Jared. I'm getting a phone call. Hang on.
Yeah.
I'm getting a call here.
Yeah, I bet you are. I bet. So the other day you and I were talking, and I said, oh, you know, I went through the CEOs of the major brands, so I was thinking about bringing on like you and you thought I meant like not. What I meant was I'm going to move on to tech companies and that stuff, which is what I'm doing now. Figured it's time to leverage that. You know, I've got friends and buddies that, although we act like 12-year-olds when we're together, you know, they've built multi-million-dollar companies. They've been successful with companies, unsuccessful with companies, have a ton of things for us all to learn. So with that being said, Dan Stewart, you want to say hello to everybody?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dan. I'm Jared's friend.
Wow. That was a long intro there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you want from me, Jared. This is
happy hour. So first off, what are you taking part with? What are you taking part in?
I have a Belgian white here from Blue Moon. That's what I'm drinking.
Have we ever, when we went out, don't you usually get those when we're in DC or something? Is that like your beer?
You're going to have Tito's and soda with lemon and lime. Like that's your drink. Everybody who's ever been within 10 feet of you knows that. Because you always smell like Tito's lemon lime.
Oh, shut up.
Which is why we're all here today. This is
This is the real reason.
This is an intervention. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. Go. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say this might not even have any alcohol in it at all. It could be just an empty cup for all you know. But
well, hey, for everybody who's watching, we always say take a picture of what you're having. It's happy hour. Put it down in the comments. Cheers. And this isn't just a regular cheers, Mr. Stewart. It is your 50th birthday. I mean, that's pretty amazing. What you don't know is that I contacted some people that I do know that are close to you, and I saw how you were celebrating today, and so I just like to show everybody.
That is so good. I've lost weight. I love it.
You know what? It's all that work. I mean, you're putting your arms into it. You know, you barely even need the thing. Half the time, you don't even use the walker. It's impressive. You know, I was gonna sing Happy Birthday. I was asking to bring people on and sing Happy
That would be
Birthday.
really funny.
Well, I remembered you turned 50 and that you probably wouldn't be able to hear us. So I figured like a visual, you could go back on this later and be like, look at that. That was so nice that they did that for me. And that's really why we just kind of did the visual for you. So hey, happy birthday, my friend. We usually do this in DC every year, but obviously that was put to an end with everything going on. So this was another way for us to get together on your birthday, keep the streak alive. The only thing we're missing is Mangus. So
where is he?
He may be in the comments or something.
Mangus.
I do want to say before we get into this though, like, so I'm going to ask you a little bit about you and how you got here and that stuff. But then, you know, this is really about what to say. And that's kind of, to me, that's part of your gift, is knowing what to say, knowing how to craft it, and knowing how to say it. And you know, that's part of what you do really well. It's why you have the company Happy Grasshopper. And so we're going to get into that. I'm going to ask you questions all about in this situation, what to say in that situation. So as much fun as we are going to have, we're definitely gonna have fun. We're also going to be, this is like a training too. Like, people are going to hear things that they need to know to say and how to say it. And then at some point, if we have time, I'm going to go into the comments or I'm going to have my team texting me or something and telling me some good questions in there. Because you said nothing you can
bring it.
You said, just bring it. So, hey, right off the bat, man, you hear that? Batman.
He called me Batman. If you can be Mary Jane, that's great. But if you can be Batman, be Batman. That's
pretty cool. Is he really a superhero?
I don't know.
Question.
Yeah,
He doesn't have a superpower other than wealth. So right off the bat, for real, how has this changed for you? Like you're working remotely, whatever, like, how's that going? And has it changed anything for you? Is it, what's the deal?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. A lot has changed. We closed our offices on March 12th, and I am in the office today. I'm the only one here. A bunch of my local staff surprised me earlier. They came by with balloons and they brought me a cake and everything. That was really nice of them.
Oh, that's nice.
And, you know, I was glad to see that more than half of them were actually wearing masks. That was pretty cool.
Wow.
That's, you know, a good thing. But in terms of how this has changed a lot, um, you know, if you look around, you'll see that wherever people run into times of stress in their life, whenever there's like a hardship that people en masse are facing, some people really step up and they provide leadership in that time. And, you know, I've seen you do that, Jared. I really want to congratulate you. You've provided a sense of community for a lot of people that, that quite frankly, we all need to get through a time like this. So, you know, when we talk about, like you asked earlier, you said you'd want to know like how this company came about and where we come from and all that. It comes from just the life I've lived.
Yeah.
I moved around a ton as a kid.
I was gonna say, tell me a little bit about that. Like, what does that mean? Like what's what's
Well,
your story getting here?
So, I mean, we'll like be real and transparent and honest. I'm an open guy. I don't have anything to hide, and I don't mind saying that. You know, like millions of people, I was raised in an environment that wasn't awesome. My parents loved us, but they had their own issues. My dad kept losing jobs consistently. He was a functional alcoholic. My mom couldn't work because she was a non-functioning alcoholic. If she was awake, she was drinking, right? So for me, that was a time of hardship. And the way that I got through it was through community. Like wherever I moved, there was always some kid I'd become best friends with whose family would like help me get through the situation.
So it was like a coping mechanism. Like in other words,
Yeah.
when you look at how good you are at engaging and connecting now and using the right words and making sure that, you know, you take advantage of every connection, you think that actually came from the fact that as a coping mechanism growing up, in order for you to fit in order for you to feel like you belonged, in order to feel some sorts of normalcy, you had to know how to connect and engage in the amount of time that you had. Otherwise, you were going to be in a spot for who knows how long and not feel community.
Well, I didn't even realize that I was being trained through my whole childhood to do what I do every day now. Because, you know, it could be a situation like I'm the new kid again.
Yeah.
Right. So the first day, what do? You go into the office and there's somebody there who's overworked and underpaid who now gets to decide what your schedule is. And if you can build some rapport with that person, you're likely to get a much better schedule than if you don't. Right.
Yeah.
You get that moment when you're the new kid and the teacher asks you to introduce yourself to the class for the first time. So you have a chance to either like win the moment or just be another new kid. Like the way you are in that moment decides how people will regard you. And that's what we do every day, right? As business owners, as sales professionals, when we're meeting people for the first time, we're really setting expectations for how that relationship is going to continue, which, you know, I didn't even understand that at the time back then. But the other great blessing of that hardship would be that it taught me the importance of keeping in touch with people over the long term. So, you know, I had 14 schools before I graduated high school, and I have friends from all those different places that I've lived that we still keep in touch with. And I mean, that to me is a greater wealth than anything I could ever deposit in a bank. So
14 different schools. I mean, that's amazing. Do you think I want to kind of get into this a little bit. Like, this isn't Happy Grasshopper is not your first company. How many different companies have you started?
This is number 7.
Number 7.
So,
okay. And didn't you've had companies that were, I don't want to, is it the Inc. 5000 or the like, what, I don't want to say things incorrectly. Like,
so like one of my more successful companies, we were on the Inc. 500, 5000 for 4 consecutive years. Which is kind of a hard thing to do because the larger you become, the difficult it is to grow that much more.
Yeah.
But growth isn't really hard. I mean, if you just provide value for people, word spreads, you know, and in our case, we were providing a type of construction work, sinkhole remediation specifically. So geotechnical contracting, like completely different.
Nothing like what you're doing now. Like nothing.
Well, you'd think not, but in actuality, there's a lot of similarities. So, most of our projects, we'd have a sales cycle that could often be multiple years, right?
Yeah.
So think about that. If you're a real estate agent, you have somebody stroll into your open house because they're curious what the house might sell for, what the neighbors did before they put it on the market. And, maybe 5 years down the road, they're going to be ready to sell themselves. Like, if you look at every opportunity as a chance to build a relationship with someone, you never know where that's going to pay off for you.
Yeah, it's amazing. So tell everybody, how did you and I meet? Because we met years ago.
Grinder, I believe.
Grinder.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Oh, that's so great. That's something I would say. And
Yeah,
you know what's funny is like 80% of the people right now are like, what? You guys met at a sandwich shop?
Yeah, that was it.
So how did we meet, man? Like tell the story.
Yeah. Well, so we all know Matt Fagioli, right? The Explode Real Estate Conference. And I'm trying to remember what city it was. I'm thinking it was Atlanta.
You get extra credit if you figure that out. That's beyond my pay grade.
I mean, this has got to be 8 years ago.
At least, not more.
Yeah, it could easily be.
Yeah.
And, I remember being relatively new to the circuit at this point in time. And, you don't know like who's going to bring really great content, who's not going to bring really great content. And I remember being impressed by you, Jared. And I thought, that's a guy I want to get to know.
Same here, by the way.
Yeah. Like, we've had this chat personally before.
Yeah, like as you're saying it right now, I'm literally like now it's all like, I remember being in the back and watching you and standing next to, I forget his name, but I'm standing next to him, and you were like, you weren't like, we have completely different styles, right? Like you're not gonna get up there and like, I don't know what this is, but
yeah, I'm not gonna dance like a crazy.
No, you get up there and you like basically go through this thing with your voice, and the stuff you're talking about just happens to capture them, and the whole, and this is gonna
I'm a storyteller, Jared.
Everybody who's listening right now, it's a great way to put it. You're a storyteller, because this is actually a compliment.
God, I need a drink.
Yeah, I'm listening to you and I'm literally thinking to myself, and we're good friends now, so I can tell you this. I'm like, I should be bored right now. Because you're not like hitting the range of like, and then and bringing it up and it down, whatever. You're just kind of talking in this voice, but the stuff you're saying, instead of being bored, I was mesmerized. And I'm like, this guy is completely just up there. No toys, there's no carrot top, there's no, props coming out or anything. He's just telling stories, and the crowd is mesmerized, and they're not screaming, they're not, whatever, but they're mesmerized. And I remember watching that and realizing, oh, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. Like this is a different type of talent, like a different type of way of doing this, right? I remember that. And then did we like meet right after, or did we go to dinner? I don't remember.
I blacked it out. I think it was Roofies, probably.
Probably. Yeah. Oh, we met on Grindr, so that's.
No, it's pretty funny. Like, for the audience, you need to know Jared and I are super close friends. So we've shared a condo with John Mangus at DC and Midyear and NAR Annual for I think 7 years now.
At least, yeah.
I mean, that's pretty crazy, right? So, like, we are the kind of friends where we can just punch each other all day long, and it's just joy. Like, that's how we express love to one another.
That's how guys do. Like, if you're not feeling like you may jump off a bridge by the time we're done talking, we're probably not.
Yeah. And since I'm really old now, it doesn't have to be a bridge. Right. I can literally jump off the sidewalk and kill myself at my advanced age.
You probably trip over it. The walker, a lot of times they've got those little tennis balls on them, and they're not really made to be lifted. I mean, what am I telling you? You know. I don't have to tell you.
That's right.
I'm going to tell you about a walker with tennis balls. Come on, that's ridiculous.
So I don't stuff my floor. It's okay.
But so tell me this. So we met. We've got along, whatever. But I've always respected what you've done. So like in your path to where you are now, where you then, I think you owned a CRM company, sold it. You started Happy Grasshopper, and now Happy Grasshopper. You guys took off relatively quickly. I mean, once you started hitting the circuit and people started knowing you, and you got the right voices on your side and everything, would you say that your ascension to the place of like business owner, entrepreneur, I'm somebody who can build multi-million-dollar companies. Do you think that that was an all of a sudden thing? Do you think that there was like a moment where like something happened in your life that made it happen? Or do you think it was just kind of like a gradual, oh, look what's happening. Like, look, oh, we can, if we've done this, I can do that. Like, how would you explain that?
Well, I think a lot of times in life, we need people who are not us to point us in the right direction. Like, we're so in our own meat, we can't see the direction we should go in sometimes. So, like, I never realized I should be an entrepreneur, even though I was the kid selling bubble gum out of a paper sack so I could buy a BMX bike.
It just wasn't it wasn't like a viable option. Like you'd think to yourself, oh, that's a potential.
Yeah, I actually told myself, well, I wouldn't be good at business. Like, I wouldn't want to do that. I'm going to do something more fun. Like, I'll be an actor. That'll be great fun. Right. But yeah, I walked around for years telling myself that, I just wouldn't want to do that sort of thing. And then I realized, with the help of some people in my life, they're like, every job you've chosen, you've had the ability to like make your own amount of money.
Yeah.
Whether I was waiting tables or bartending, like, you could earn what you needed to earn based on the level of service you provided. And that's something that I absolutely love about being self-employed is, prosperity is such a great reporting device. Like, if you're doing a good job, people reward you by giving you their business. And, when you're losing clients, it can certainly be regarded as, something to turn away from or to like push aside and not want to look at because it's so painful. But that's where you're going to grow the most, is to like look at what it is that you're not doing right and then work on those things.
Yeah.
So,
and in a sense, you guys kind of do that for people right now. I had a meeting with our coaches earlier, and one of our coaches was telling me how they use you guys to, he said, whether it's the emails we're creating and they just take the content and they make it grasshopper-ish, and now it sounds so much better and we get responses, or whether it's my website, content as far as what we're writing up on there, and it's, whatever. Like, he goes, I literally, anywhere we have any kind of writing that has to be done, or it's got to sound a certain way, or we've got to get people to a certain place, he goes, we just kind of send it over, to them, they grasshopper it, and now that's ready for our site. Like, now it's ready for our messaging, now it's ready for our, so in essence, you guys are kind of in a way fulfilling, the hole or the need where a lot of people aren't good at. Right. I mean,
I like to look at the market from a perspective, like, try this on for size.
Okay.
So, there are thousands of ways to send messages. Like, nobody needs another tool to send email or text or voicemail drops or handwritten cards.
Right.
They're all there and you can use them all. Like, it's not a challenge for people to send a message today. It's just really hard to know what to say.
Right.
That's the thing. And like, a lot of people, I would imagine right now, because this is what we're hearing in our channels, how do I deal with COVID? Like, how do I talk to people? I had this lead that was getting close. I thought they'd be ready to move forward now. What do I say to them? And we just started hearing this question over and over again. In this situation, what should we say? In that situation, what should we say? So I thought, well, I'm going to put together a Facebook group and I'm going to answer those questions.
And so did you do that now? You guys created a group specifically around what to say?
Well, we just launched it today, Jared. Like, it's brand spanking new. So thank you for having me on to share this with everybody nice and early. But yeah, just search Facebook for what to say now. And, any questions you have about how to improve content you have, or about how to reach out to any segment of your database, or like, I once wrote a letter that got my grandmother to send me $5,000 so I could graduate from college. Like, I don't care what the situation is. There's a human on one side and a human on the other side. So, ask your questions in that group, and I'm going to figure out how to help you have the right message in between.
That's very cool. In fact, if one of my team is watching, what is it called? What to say now?
What to say now. Yeah, we don't have enough members to have our own domain for that yet. So just search Facebook for.
But we can go still grab the actual URL. It may not be the what to say, but if they can go look up what to say now and post the link for everybody watching right now to join, go post it in the comments. I think honestly, it's helpful. It's not like that's not even selling anything. That's like,
there's nothing for sale there.
That's helpful. Like, it's just absolutely helpful. So let's get right into it, man. Like, let's kind of talk about some of those things as far as like where people struggle, right? I want to go over some generic ones, and then I want to talk about, you know, COVID specific stuff, because I know there's a lot of people right now that just, you know, they want to be sensitive to what's going on, but they also know that they need to make a living, and that there are some people that want to hear what it is they have to say. And it's just this real, you know, just balancing act, right? So before we even get into that side, what do you say? Because one of the most common things, obviously, that I see in the industry is we all know that we need to follow up with past people, right?
Yep.
One of the things that, you know, I've talked about years how important internet leads are, but one of the things that I think has gotten missed in that is that people have gone all here and then forgotten, you know, the lowest part of the marketing funnel, the lowest part of the sales funnel, which is the easiest ones to close, which is friends, family, people who already know you, trust you, whatever. And you've got people who are spending 10 times as much time trying to convert someone they've never talked to before than they are keeping the ones close to them that are already, you know, bought in on them. So the issue becomes, everybody knows that. You know, I've been talking about this study lately that showed that the average lifetime value of a client in real estate nationwide is actually $117,000. So it's not the 3, 4, 5, 6,000 one time. It's over and over and over. The lifetime value is 117, but most of us struggle to get there because we're really good at dealing with people when we're in that transaction. We're great at taking care of people. We're great at responding. We're best friends for 3 to 6 months, but we don't realize that the transaction doesn't stop at the closing. It starts at the closing.
Yeah.
So once that starts and you know, people are already behind, people who are watching right now, they're like, shoot, but it's already been years. It's awkward. I see them in a supermarket. I realize my shortfallings. Like, what have I done? Like, we teach people the 5-step follow-up, but you can't even get to that 5-step follow-up unless you're still in touch.
Right.
So how do you reinvigorate? Like, you know, what does that conversation look like? How do you take people in your SOI and just get back on track with them?
There's so much here. I need to reel back just a little bit because, like, I don't think I've ever told you. Do you know why my company is called Happy Grasshopper?
Because you hate crickets?
No, it's because every sales professional in the world does what you just described.
What's that?
Like, you've got this really intense, compact relationship, and then boom, you're hopping out of it into the next one and the next one and the next one. And I mean, it's bad enough the world views salespeople as insects, right? We don't have to be pests. Like, we don't have to have this like close hard mentality all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're talking about reaching out to this database that you haven't talked to in a while, let's just acknowledge a couple of things. First, it's normal to have some fear about reaching out to those people. Like, let's say I've got 100 people in a database that I haven't talked to in a while. If I'm a real estate professional, I'm going to think of all the stuff that could go wrong if I reach out to them. Some of them are past clients. Maybe they don't love their home. Or maybe they listed it with someone else. Like, right? There's this sense of I might discover pain if I reach out to those people.
Right.
So the first thing you've got to do before you even worry about what to say is just take a deep breath and say, you know what? I'm going to reach out. I'm going to find out. Like, the best thing I can do for my business is commit to regular communication with the people in my life. I like to call it.
In other words, even if there is pain, if you reach out and there is issues, like, yes, they might not work with you going forward, but you might be able to fix it. And if you don't reach out, you guaranteed you're never going to fix it. So it's like, there's no win in not reaching out.
Countless examples over the years of people like Todd Clark from years ago. I'll never forget, because he heard what we do, but he was like afraid to try it with too big a list. He sent one message to 16 people and he got 2 transactions from those 16 people. Okay. So when we heard that, we're like, well, tell us about these 16 people. He goes, Dan, they're deals I did like at least 6 years ago. I hadn't talked to them at all, and I felt really bad. I figured they might not even remember me. So, you know, the lesson here is it doesn't matter how long it's been. Our relationship is a two-way street. Okay. Yes, you didn't reach out to them, but guess what? They also didn't reach out to you. Right? So stop feeling guilty about that. And for whatever you do not send an apology of, I'm so sorry I haven't kept in touch.
You know how much I hate that messaging.
Oh, man,
like, I've seen coaches and trainers for years send out this I'm sorry message.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what is that? like, I'm so glad you said that, because I didn't know if that's where you were going to go. And if you did start off with the unique send an I'm sorry message, no, I mean, you're my buddy, so I was going to go, oh, thank you, let's move on to the next one.
Right. Yeah. No,
I
you
hate
can't,
that
you can't
messaging,
leave
though.
that. You can't
To
leave
me,
it.
that's as bad as when someone gets on stage and disqualifies themselves and tells everyone why they shouldn't be listening to them.
I'm not a speaker,
I
really.
don't know why they have me up here. I'm not really a professional, but I'm gonna, anyway.
No, exactly. You just can't do that.
So don't send the I'm sorry message.
Don't leave with I'm sorry, right? So there's a technique, right? Because I can give you words, or I can teach you a technique where you can use this anywhere, anytime. So the technique I'd like you to learn is called, first you got to recognize the relationship. We're talking specifically about people who already know you, right? They're deep in the funnel. These are past clients. These are sphere. You've lost touch with them. So the kind of message.
By the way, my team, when you're watching right now, as he goes through this technique, I want you to write it down in the comments.
Okay, cool. So we've established who this person is that's getting the message. There's someone who knows you that you haven't kept in touch with in a while, right? So the technique of shared observation is going to be really useful for you, right?
Because you establish who the relationship is, and because in this case, it's somebody where you've had some kind of a past relationship with them, whatever it is, because of that is now going to it's going to determine that the next step is doing what you just said, which is a common.
Well, let me connect the dots here for you. Okay. So, let's imagine we've got two people in the database. One is a past client you haven't touched base with in a long time. And the other one is a hot lead that just came in that you haven't spoken with yet. Right. So your attention is going to go all to that lead that just came in, like, oh, maybe that's my next closing. Right. That's a natural reaction. But I want to put this in context so you understand why this technique is right for one group and not right for the other group. Okay. So shared observation is when you look at something, a subject matter that's taking place now, and you comment about that in a way that starts a conversation. Okay? Shared observation works great with people who know you. It doesn't work well with people who don't. So, a few months ago, it seems like 10 years ago, when Tesla dropped the Cybertruck, right? I'll use that as an example. So for days after that happened, everybody was talking about the Cybertruck. How many did you order, by the way, Jared?
Oh, God, it's countless, man.
None.
I
right?
think they only allowed up to 25, and so I just went with.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's polarizing, right?
None. Yeah.
So something like that pops up. It's the sort of thing you can have a shared observation about that makes it really easy for someone to have a conversation started with you, right? So if I sent you a message, Jared, we know each other, we haven't communicated in a while, and I was like, Jared, I'm sure you saw this. Am I insane? I actually kind of like it. What do you think? Like, it's a shared observation.
You actually did that.
Yeah.
When that came out, I remember you posting something about it. And so you were working off of the shared observation technique.
We eat our own dog food. Absolutely. And I got a ton of engagement. That could be a social media post. It could be an email. It could be a text message. Like, there's a lot of things to be said about the channel you're sending your message through, but the techniques, like when you learn the techniques, it doesn't matter what the channel is, right? Shared observation is effective. Shared observation works if you're standing in line at Starbucks waiting for something. You can find something in the store that's interesting and start a conversation about it. Like, look at that. Somebody left their red Solo cup over there, Jared. Isn't that crazy?
And people just want to agree, right? Because they want to belong and they're like, you're right. Someone did leave the red Solo cup.
I mean, this is a really bad example. The red Solo cup is not compelling at all. And yet it's a reason to start a conversation with someone.
And really, though, let's be clear, because that's the difference between like what you teach in your company and how you guys try to create engagement, which, by the way, we've never really had this conversation, but like it fits 100% into my belief system, which is whether it's internet leads, whether it's, whatever it is, over 70% of people work with the first person they have a conversation with, right? Mm-hmm. And even when you look at our techniques to get you into the house for a market analysis or something like that, it's all built around the idea of, I'm not trying to sell, I'm not trying to sell. You're trying to get into a situation where you can have a conversation, because once you have a conversation, you realize the person on the other side is not the boogeyman. And you're like, oh, shoot, they're actually pretty normal. They're not going to cut me up into pieces and throw me down in the basement. Like, this is, so shared observation is
Shared
a
observation.
masterful technique.
And you know, for years, Jared, I've been saying conversations lead to contracts. Like hashtag it. That is the way it works. Like the more people you talk to, the more closings you'll have. It just goes that way. If you do one thing, right? And this is another something that should go in the note. And it's 3 words. It's easy to remember. Express sincere concern. Right?
Explain what that means.
Express sincere concern. So it's the best sales advice I can ever give anyone, right? Whatever the situation is, whether it's a past client, whether it's an expired listing, whether it's a probate deal. I mean, it doesn't matter what the situation is. If you can express sincere concern to someone, you're giving them something that's incredibly valuable. It's called validation.
I was going to say probably because you're validating them, right? Like that.
You're validating them. Yes. It's so important to do that because we live in a time when like 3,000 commercial messages per day are fired at us on average. We don't feel heard as individual human beings.
So identify the relationship of your audience. Number 2 is the shared observation. And then number 3 is to express sincere, sincere, what was it? Sincere what?
Sincere concern. Yeah. And let's be clear about this, right? Because understanding your audience is the prerequisite. Like imagine you, Jared James, being the kick-ass coach and speaker that you are, showing up at a convention for an industry you know absolutely nothing about. Like, you know, here you've got this great approach. You've moved people. You've made a difference in their lives. And if you don't understand your audience, you can't deliver that message appropriately.
Yeah.
Right. So one of my core beliefs is that one size fits all content is mostly wrong. Like it's hard to get one size fits all anything to be great.
You know, in other words, you're saying like if people are trying to do proper messaging, create conversations and stuff through their database, through their CRM, through their whatever, that if you're just buying templated newsletters and blasting them to everybody without any real context of who this is going to and does this matter to them, then ultimately you might affect 12% of your audience, but 88% of your database is now going to turn you off.
Well, I don't know what the actual percentage is.
I'm making those percents up. I'm just going,
Yeah, I mean, the point is, like, if you look at the stats from NAR, where the average buyer's lead is registered with 8+ agents, you know, are they getting that same content more than once? It's very likely they are. You know, if I'm a buyer today and I've registered on your IDX site, well, I've probably registered on other agents' IDX site. So I'm getting the same property search updates on a daily basis from agents plus from the portals. Like, as a potential client of yours, you better send me something that cuts through that crap and makes a human connection.
Right.
What does that is to express sincere concern, right? Awesome. So that's a mindset I want you to take to any of your follow-up, any of your outreach, any of your communication planning. If you first strive to understand the conversation they're having with themselves, you can do a much better job creating content that really produces the result that you need.
So here's what I'm hearing, and I just got a notice that I need to make sure I announce something. I'm going to go to in a second. I want to talk about what this means in a real world sense. So like when you're talking to your database or you're talking to a cold lead that hasn't been responding, let's put those into practice and show what that looks like. Before we do that, though, we do this every one of these Facebook Lives, podcasts, whatever you want to call them. We have our advance coming up in October 5th and 6th in Nashville, if we're able to go to Nashville. So on every one of these here, we give away a free ticket just for watching. So we're going to do a drawing. So if you're watching this right now, do me a favor, take a picture of the screen or take a picture of yourself watching it, post it on Facebook and Instagram and tag me at Jared James Today. I'm at Jared James Today on everything. So tag me on Instagram and Facebook with the hashtag Happy Hour with Jared James. We're going to pick one person in the next 24 hours as a result of that. And also, as we're about to go into like some real tangible, like what do those things mean when you're actually writing someone? Like, how do you come up with it? What does it look like in a message? This is stuff that people need to hear about. So do me a favor, hit that share button over there. And it doesn't cost you anything. For the next 30 seconds, I'm going to let you guys do it for free. We took off the charge button on Facebook. And I know there's some people right now looking around for the charge button. It's always free, guys. Go ahead and share it. We think it's valuable information. We want to get as much out to as many people as we can. So thank you guys for that. So, Dan, when we get very practical with this, right? Because I'm already in my head when you're saying these things, thinking of messaging and thinking about what you can do with it. I'm also looking at the messages I've seen from you over the years and realizing there's a formula involved when you're doing this. What does that actually look like when you're either messaging your database to try to reinvigorate, when you're messaging cold leads and are you trying to really just get a conversation started? Because once you can get a conversation, now you can talk about other things, or are you trying to get a conversation centered around a house?
I would rather have a conversation started about anything rather than only have a conversation started about a house. Right? Because it's a mindset issue. If your mindset is a relationship with a human being is a valuable thing, you're going to win, right?
Right.
If your mindset is a relationship with a human being who's ready to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, it's much more limiting, right? It's a much more narrow focus. And there are times when we need to narrow that focus, and there are times when we need to open it up as broadly as possible. So, initially, I never assume what a potential relationship could provide. I'm open to it providing absolutely anything. You may have had your experience, or you may have had someone experience a sales scenario where someone seems completely unqualified. They're, seem to be wasting your time, and then they refer you to like the best buyer ever.
Yeah.
These stories litter real estate offices around the country. So, from my perspective, there's very few absolutes, and yet this is one I'm willing to defend. And it's that the relationship is the thing that you've got to really work on. So relationships only exist in one place. That's in conversation. As good of friends as we are, Jared, if we're not continuing to have conversations, we're not continuing to have a relationship.
Right. So what would you do with someone like now, like during, whether it's this time or whether it's just, whatever, trying to spark relationship? Like, what kind of examples would you use? What would you be sending? Like, what would you
recommend? Great question. So first thing we're going to do is talk about the source, right? Because the way that you respond to someone is based on what you know about them.
Right.
Okay. So if I know that I have a lead from an open house, which what a blessing that would be in this environment, I know they're an open house lead, right? If it came from my website, I know they're a website lead. If they came from a portal, well, I know they came from a portal. So that's the tiniest amount of information that I would have about them, and yet it's useful information. So I recommend responding to leads in that situation with 3 phases of communication. Okay. The first thing you need to do is acknowledge them. And an acknowledgement message should be really, really short. It should be something that gets a response. So if I'm going to have a text response, it could be something as simple as, "Is this Jared?" Right? Or if I'm going to have an email, it might be something like, "Hey, Jared, thanks for registering on my website. I do a really good job following up with people. So I'm going to reach out to you via email, text, and phone. Do you have a preference?" Like, oh, okay, wow, this is a person who's going to follow up with me. It might be in my best interest to tell them one of those roads is preferred.
Because it's literally in their interest, because you just let them know I'm really good at it. But really what you planted the seed of was, hey, you're about to get messaging on all these different platforms from me, and you probably don't want that. So why don't you just shoot me something back quick that says text me?
Yeah.
That's really what you did.
Great. And then what are you doing? You're texting them.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You've got the conversation started. So you just went from being that agent who didn't get a response to the lead to being the one that has the first conversation with them, which the stat you quoted earlier is what you're going for.
And it was in their best interest. Like, it was like, they're like, I don't want to get bombarded. We call it finding their love language. There's love languages of leads, right?
Yep.
So just like there's love languages in real life, there's acts of service, touch, quality.
Mine are touch and acts of service and quality time.
Leads like to communicate by email. They like to communicate by video. They like to communicate by social DM. They like to communicate by, like I said, your text message. They like to communicate by phone. Like, you got to find their love language. And I love that. That's a great way to do that, is to let them know, hey, I'm really good at following up.
Yeah.
So is there one you prefer? I like that.
Yeah, it's a good approach, but here's the rub. So according to NAR, the average lead starts registering 8 to 12 months before they're ready to actually talk to an agent.
Yeah.
Shopping for real estate is a sport, man. People love to look at houses online. You're going to have forced registration set up, so they will give you an email address to get another picture of the bathroom. Like, that's how crazy the world is.
Yeah.
So your expectation should be that a lot of people who I send that message to are going to need more messaging from me. Like, should be obvious, but the next phase that you send is really critical, because this is where you start to separate yourself from all the other agents who are only sending property search updates.
Okay. So say again, the first phase was what? The first phase?
Acknowledgement.
Okay. Acknowledgement. Okay.
Jared, I know you exist. Like,
Gotcha.
thank you for coming to my open house. I'm great at follow-up. You know, do you prefer text, email, or phone?
Gotcha.
Right? That's a pretty good approach. The next phase is called the positioning phase. And this is where you position yourself as being unique and special and different from all the other agents that they might choose from, right? So here's the rub. There's no one size fits all solution to this. Like, my company, what I do is take the time to interview people to understand what's unique and special about them, and then communicate that to these strangers who don't know you yet.
Yeah.
Right? So I'll give you guys the technique here, the hack, the process that you go through to do this well is really one of a transfer of knowledge. Okay. So Jared, I'm not going to ask you a number, but it's safe to say you have a lot of people who love you, right? A lot of people have learned from you. They've referred a lot of people your way. Okay. So your marketing messages can be improved by teaching someone who's considering you what the people who are using you love about you.
Right.
Right. So, you know, all of you folks who've got these great reviews on Zillow and Realtor.com and on your Facebook and Google and wherever else they might be, you need to pull what's important there and share that with the reader in a way that doesn't make you seem like you're bragging about yourself.
Right.
Okay. There's an art to that. And that's why I have a whole staff of professional writers. You know, it's not easy to thread that needle, and you can't just link to your reviews because people aren't going to take the time to read them.
Gotcha.
So, you know, what I would suggest you do is have a single purpose per message, right? And always close it with a call to conversation rather than a call to action.
Okay.
We don't want that lead going back to your site to do more searching. We want that lead getting on a call with you.
Okay.
Right? So you've got to give them a reason to want to have a conversation with you in that message. So another
an example of that, because I love that call to conversation rather than a call to action.
Yeah.
So when you say a call to conversation, is that part of what the whole shared observation, you know, acknowledgement, like the whole, like you're trying to say, can you believe, or da, 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 or whatever it is, and then you're asking for some kind of response to the conversation? Like, what are you doing for that?
Yeah. So, you know, we're all familiar with calls to action. Buy now, click here, blah, blah, blah. Most email marketing is geared for that. Most email marketing is used by companies who are selling things that can be downloaded. Nobody is going to download a house. Will not happen. So you need to get those people into a conversation with you instead. So instead of having language like, click here to get your home's value, you know, click here for the latest report on blah, blah, blah. It's much better to have a call to conversation. Something like, you know, hey, Jared, I was just reviewing the information about your neighborhood, and it turns out there's something in the numbers I think you'll find very interesting. Please give me a call. I think you're going to want to know this as soon as possible, right? So, like, I'm just writing this off the cuff in my head.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's honestly, it's amazing how aligned we are. Like, I'm sure my students are watching right now and laughing because we say things like, you know, there's something about that property you can't find online that I think is really going to interest you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be at this number for the next 60 minutes. I look, or whatever it is. Like, we're just basically doing the same thing. Like, there's something you can't get that we know that you're into.
Yeah.
You know, it's like dangling the carrot, so to say.
Yeah. There's a copywriting technique here called the information gap. It's called the information gap. The idea is you raise their curiosity about something and then you leave it unresolved. The only way they're going to know how the story ends is to reach out to you and have.
But I can resolve it. So it's just like it's like creating the problem and then I have the solution type of thing. you're basically creating that gap, that whatever it is, but it's like, hey, I can fill that gap.
Yeah, that's right. I've got a client in, I think it's Houston, who's part of the ExxonMobil corporate relocation program, right? Yeah. So, you know, when I said before, it's important to understand the lead source so you can create the right kind of content. Like, what kind of content might I choose to send someone who I know is an ExxonMobil relocation lead rather than just somebody who's registering on my website, right?
So it's very specific.
Yeah, I mean, for this client, we used more sophisticated language. We're assuming lots of engineers are being transferred after interviewing our client. So, you know, we say things like empirical data, right? So imagine that you're an engineer in this program and you've been told, hey, we're moving you. You need to sell your house. We have a special program for that.
I see what you're doing.
Choose one of these 3 agents, right? And then these 3 agents now know that you're a lead. And they get a message from us that's written like from an engineer to an engineer, right? And it's saying, hey, we've got data. It's really important. We know that they value data as an engineer.
And now it's not shared observation. Now it's shared language.
It's bringing the relationship closer and closer and closer, right? Because I like to think of it like a game of proximity. You know, in martial arts, there's something called range of combat. Like, Jared, we're thousands of miles apart right now. I can have the best punch or kick in the world. It's not going to do any good if we're in a fight, right? All I have now is what's on my face and the words that are coming out of my eating hole. Like, that's it. That's the limit of my things to deploy here towards a goal.
Are we going to move on past that you just called it your eating hole?
My eating hole, yes. I'm going to put.
Sure, I want to make sure that wasn't a glitch.
There will be cake here later, I promise you. Yep. I've gained my COVID-18. I'm working on all 19. Get there tomorrow, I think. So anyway, the idea is that you've got to understand you can't write a soliloquy. Like, you might have great copy, you might be a wonderful writer, but if you write someone a novel in a text message, it's just going to irritate them.
Not appropriate.
Like, there's times when you've got to choose the right asset for the right situation. So I'm a huge fan of texting early in the process when a lead has just been registered. And the longer that lead is being nurtured, the least effective and more annoying texting will become.
Right.
I mean, haven't we all received a text lately from something we don't even remember? And it's like, oh, like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want you to be that person. Open rate does not matter. It's engagement rate, it's conversation rate that matters.
That makes complete sense. What is I'm just curious listening to this right now, because I know a lot of marketers believe in long form emails, long story emails, like whatever. What is your thoughts on those?
If it's well written and it's to the right audience at the right time, it makes perfect sense.
I was gonna say, because I know plenty of marketers that swear by it. Like, it's like, you know, internet marketers especially.
Yeah. Jared, I got to push pause here for a moment, because like what you're just saying is so incredibly critical. I want to take a moment to talk about this.
Go for it.
Because constantly I get asked, well, how frequently should I email someone?
That was my next question, by the way.
For how long should I keep in touch with someone?
Yeah.
How long should my content be? I hear that all the time. And here's the hard truth, folks. The answer is, it depends. It depends, right? There is no one right answer for the situation. If Jared has a daily email and he asks people to sign up for Jared's tip of the day, and I sign up and he emails me 5 times a day, I'm irritated, right? If I sign up and he emails me once a month, I'm irritated.
Right.
Like, if you set expectations for people, the right answer is fulfill those expectations that you've set, right? It's simple. So when it comes to length of message, context makes a huge difference, right? The audience who's reading it makes a huge difference. And you also have to remember that people learn in different ways. So one individual might want to read that giant thing. The other person is going to want to just watch a video, right? So you've got to know your audience. It always comes back to really.
That's a good point. Expectation. Like, some people are tip of the day. Some people are that's not the case. So it really comes down to what you sold them on, right? Like what are they going to get into? And I think part of the problem for a lot of people watching right now, listening later on, is that they don't even know what they're going to do. Like they don't even know. They're, how many times have we heard from people? They're like, I'll tell you what, starting today, and they put it out there, I am going to send out a content or whatever once a week. And,
sure.
And then second week it's there. And then all of a sudden, the tumbleweed starts hitting you in the leg because they just completely, so it's about creating expectation, being clear about that expectation, and then ultimately fulfilling on that expectation.
If you want the abs, you got to do the sit-ups.
Yeah. I'm again, we're so aligned here. Like when we talk about our 5-step follow-up with SOI, step 1 is create expectation. Step 2 is execute on that expectation, meaning you actually follow through when you were going to on the thing you said you were going to. And then on that conversation, you create the next expectation. Like we always create the expectation for what the next touch is going to be when following up with our people.
That's perfect.
Expectation is powerful.
Like imagine you've got a system that's going to follow up. Like it's got content in it. The content's going to go out. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
It would be really, really smart to let people know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, so what you just said, every message you want to set expectations that you're going to continue to follow up.
We do our content every Thursday. Every Thursday to our database, they get a Jared James show from YouTube one week. The next week they get podcast. The next week they get Jared James show. The next week they get podcast. And it's just, and what we found is our open rates went up a lot higher once people started knowing what to expect. Yeah. Rather than what I used to do in the old days was I'm inspired right now. Let me shoot a video or two. And then 3 months go by and there's nothing. And we ultimately found out, oh shoot, like this is a disservice to everybody, including ourselves. Like we've got to be consistent. We've got to communicate what that's going to be, what that expectation is going to be. And then we've got to execute on it. So very similar, man. It sounds like human behavior.
I got to tell you a quick story. So, I believe that relationships are valuable. You never know which direction they're going to go, right? I told you that I grew up in an environment I did not like, and I feel like I get to lead the life I'm living because other people cared enough to invest in me, like not capital, but time, conversation, love. Like that made a huge difference to me. And one of the people I'm going to call out right now, his name is Billy Harris, and he's the CEO of a sterile glove manufacturer called Sempermed, right? Big business. Like the dude is amazingly smart, and he's just like a South Carolina good old boy. This is my Billy Harris impression right now, and I can hear his voice when you say what you said a little while ago. There's two things. Like I just hear like a bell, clear as day, coming through. Both of them in his voice. One of them is consistency equals professionalism. Consistency equals professionalism. And the other one is if you got good data, you can make good decisions, right?
Good, that's good.
So like you just referenced data, you saw your open rates change when you told them what to expect.
And then executed on it.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, we also got responses if we don't execute on it.
Yeah, that's right. Where is it?
Where is it? We've been waiting.
Yeah.
Our office said, we've got our lunch meeting at noon on Thursdays. We usually show your video. Where's the they start to expect it when you're consistent, which is a good thing.
So this is a good time for me to plug my What to Say Now again, because every Monday at 2 p.m. I'm going to go live, right? I'm going to go live every Monday at 2 p.m.
Will that be off of your profile, or will that be in the group?
Well, it will probably be both. It'll probably
be off your profile and
share it into the group. Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll be, you'll talk about every week. You'll talk about things like what to say and what to,
Well, this is where I want to have people say, Dan, here's my situation. I have a database of 6,000 really cold leads that I just don't know what to do with. Should I throw them away? I've heard like some people say, if you've emailed them and they haven't responded after 6 months, you should just torch them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no.
Oh, yeah, you didn't hear that from me.
No.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like I can't tell you how many times I've talked to someone who says, well, yeah, I had a big database, but they weren't responding, so I deleted them. And I'm like, oh, no. Not today. Don't do that. Delete them stuff.
Yeah, that's not very great.
You just need to send better messaging. You want a better result, you got to send a better message.
Man, I'll tell you what, the whole opportunity with COVID, we had our people send out both one-to-one and do mass like text, just saying, hey, how are you? Is there anything I can do? Just very simple. I got hundreds of messages from clients saying, I'm having hundreds of conversations with people I haven't talked to in years, because like saying what you're saying now, they showed concern, and they, and it's amazing. They're having these conversations now. But I want to know from you, I saw a question come in. So, we've heard commonly call to action, and you're calling it call to conversation is more effective than call to action. What's the ratio you think for real estate people, for example? I know we have a lot of people that listen, entrepreneurs and otherwise, but we have a big, real estate conglomerate. So, what is the ratio you think in your messaging, how often your messages should have a call to action or a call to conversation? Is it every time? Is it 3 out of 4? Is it 2 out of 4? Is it 1 out of 4? Is it, whatever? Like, how do you look at that?
Yeah, 100% of the time, a message should have a call to conversation.
In other words, what's the point?
Why the heck would I send you a message I don't want you to reply to? Okay?
Gotcha.
And so there's a fork in the road here, right? Because there's a difference between one-to-one communication and one-to-many.
Yeah.
So like a lot of agents who are producing a monthly newsletter, it's like this item in their to-do marketing list that they get to check off. But very few people really engage or reply to that because it feels like a one-to-many message.
Yeah.
So, it reminds me, Jared, like years ago, I wrote content for Diana Kokoska. And, she's famous in the Keller Williams universe. She's there like bright sign. She's retired now. She was like really famous within their ecosystem. So if I wrote a message.
You ran the MAPS program?
Yeah. So MAPS and Bold. And like we helped sell out her Recharge program one year. Where the way they had been marketing it, it was all sales push. Like, here's the bullet points of why you should attend this event. Click here to register with a click here to register button. And I thought, okay, that's one way to do it. But gosh, people love you. Wouldn't it be a lot better if we really sliced and diced the database and figure out who's the right target for this event, and then send them a message acknowledging how they've improved and that now you think it's the time for them to attend?
Yeah.
Like it feels like a personal invitation. And we sold out this $4,000 per seat event in less than 24 hours with just delivering a personal message from Diana rather than a marketing message from a brand.
That's awesome.
So this is the power that every real estate agent needs to tap into, is they need to become that person to the people in their database that they just can't wait to hear from.
So I've got an interesting question for you. And by the way, because we're going to do a couple more questions here, guys. But one more time, I want to tell you guys, if you guys want to win a free ticket to the advance, take a picture of this, take a picture of you watching it, tag me on Instagram, Facebook. I'm at Jared James Today, and use the hashtag Happy Hour with Jared James. And we're going to pick a winner in the next 24 hours. So make sure you do that, guys, at Jared James Today on Instagram. Share this. You'll get extra credit, that little share button on Facebook. Here's my question. So I'm trying to get inside the minds of the people listening right now. And so if your whole point is to send out and get engagement and to, have that call to conversation, should they be budgeting a certain amount of time when they send out an email or a text or whatever it is to just engage? Is it a different amount of time based on the size of the database? Is it something they've just got to learn as they go? Like, what do you recommend for that?
Well, it's going to vary a little bit depending on the method of the message and the quality of the message. And then, of course, the size of the audience that you're sending it to.
Yeah.
So like, last year we introduced text messaging as part of our application.
By the way, so everybody knows, just really quickly here, Happy Grasshopper is integrated into Jarja Media. So we've got users that are using Jarja or using Happy Grasshopper. All the contacts come over seamlessly and everything else. So for those of you that are out there wondering that, it's already built in. So if you're a Jarja user right now, you should 100%, this isn't like a call to action, but like you should 100% be using Happy Grasshopper and just bring it right in. They do an amazing job. So anyway.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you. Yeah. So with text messaging, for example, I was experimenting. I sent a text out to 1,000 people. Like we have more than 250,000 agents who've asked to be in our database. So I figured, well, I'll just do a small test and send a message to 1,000. I couldn't do anything for the next several hours.
Yeah.
It was blowing me up. The
just going back and forth
was absolutely crazy. It's way, way too much. So, our recommendation is never send more than 100 texts at a time. And like every time I leave the stage, if I have the
Can you say
audience,
that again, by the way? Because I felt like that was really important. Like, I feel like that's a big mistake. Like say what you just said again about text messaging.
yeah, never send more than 100, and never send a text if you're not going to take the time to engage, because people are going to reply.
Because there's no spam folder, there's no, it's coming to them. Like right then, it's coming to them.
Yep, they're going to get it, and when they do, they're going to respond, right? So
if it's written correctly, yeah.
Well, I'll give you an example. So, speaking on the Explode circuit, I'll leave the stage and we'll pack our stuff up and then drive into the airport. I'm cracking open my laptop and I'm sending a message to the audience saying, hey, thank you very much. It's Dan at Happy Grasshopper. Really appreciated your participation today at Explode. Don't be shy if I can help you with anything.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'll immediately get tons of replies from people saying things like, take me off your list, right? You get that sometimes. And you also get, oh my God, you were the best. I loved you. You were my favorite. Thank you.
Isn't that crazy? Same event, and one person hopes you step in traffic, and the other one is like, I love you. Oh my God, you would float right over traffic because you're amazing.
Yeah, and you got to build up a little bit of a thick skin here sometimes, because let's just recognize I have a finite amount of time. Who do you think I'd rather invest my time in?
So true.
Like, I want to serve the people who want me to serve them.
Yeah.
I don't want to convince people who are going to be like that to
good day.
Life's too short. Yeah, life's too short.
Yeah.
Yep. So about 100 text messages is the max. And,
okay.
If you're sending email, we've seen a steady decline in open rates over the years as an industry, right? And yet at Happy Grasshopper, ours are actually growing. Okay. So, 10 years of doing this, hundreds of millions of messages sent per year, we know how to get a response from people. The difference here, and I'm going to use a big word, is email is asynchronous. Okay. It's disconnected from the time it's sent. If I call you, Jared, and you answer the phone, hey, Dan, what's up? And I'm not there. That's really weird. That's synchronous. We're locked in time together.
Yeah.
It works that way with a text message. If I send you a text, do you expect me to be there?
Right.
But email, I can send it anytime. You can reply anytime. And I don't have that pressure of needing to be right there to have that conversation the moment that they reply. Okay. So you got breathing space there with email.
You can send more emails is what you're saying.
You can send more email and you can get more response and you can respond to those people over a greater amount of time.
And so in other words, with email, you don't need to look at the limits like you do on text message. And really with email, because there's not the pressure to respond right away, you can send to your database. It probably is good to reserve some time, whether it's immediately or whether it's, whatever. But text message, you've got to be a little bit, you got to send them less at a time because of the type of communication. What's expected is different than email.
Yes, exactly.
Asynchronous.
Yeah, I'm a geek. Sorry about the word there, guys, but it's not that challenging. I mean, Jared just said it, right? He's a professional speaker, though, so.
Yeah, please. And I butcher the English language. So true. So if I told you the amount of times my wife or someone goes, and how are you a professional speaker?
Yeah, I know.
Exactly. All right. So we gotta kind of come in for the landing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So couple of really quick things. Number one, what do you think agents and brokers should be focused on right now?
Okay. So one of the problems that we're going to have with questions like that is it depends. Like real estate is so regional right now.
Yeah.
I have clients in Pennsylvania who are like, open up, right? And I have people in markets where they haven't slowed down an iota.
I was just talking to someone in Tennessee and they're like, yeah, we're basically at normal.
Yeah. It's crazy. So you've got to always have the context between who are you communicating with, right? So if you're in one of those markets where it's locked down, here's what I'd say you should be doing right now is building your pipeline. You need to send messages out to people saying, hey, things are going to go crazy here as soon as the state opens up again. So I wanted to reach out now, right?
Yeah.
Like you're expressing sincere concern. It's going to be a free-for-all in 2 weeks. I want to reach out now so I can help you in case you need me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Get that pipeline built ahead of the craziness. Back as a waiter and a bartender, we used to call that being in the weeds.
It's kind of already happening.
You got to be proactive if you're going to really maximize the busy time. And it's just around the corner if you're in a closed market.
Depending on did you see the stats? Like showings are at pre-COVID levels already.
Yeah.
Showings across the country are already at pre-COVID levels, and that's with some areas not operating at full capacity. I was talking to our coaches today, and many of them all over the country are houses they couldn't sell in previous years because they were overpriced. They're now putting them back on the market and getting 8 offers because you're in a situation with 3.4 months of inventory and this buildup of buyers that have been sitting at home. And someone I know keeps telling everybody there's going to be a surge, and now that surge is absolutely coming, and you've got this influx of buyers that are just trying to get these properties. And unfortunately for many of you, we're going to see kind of a varied level of surges, meaning that there's not enough inventory to have one prolonged surge. There's not enough properties there. So you're probably going to get a surge, slow, a surge, slow, a surge, slow, because you need more properties to hit the market, So you would recommend, though, during this time, depending on where they are, depending on, what's going on, to change their messaging to be contextual to where they are. They're either building a pipeline or they're in a situation where it's like, hey, things are loose now. I'm here for you. Like how would you recommend messaging an area where they're open and they're ready?
Okay. So, we talked about some tenets here, right?
Yep.
One of them that I'm going to call out again is express sincere concern.
Yes.
So whatever your market conditions are, if you're in a place where like every home is getting multiple offers, there are buyers who are frustrated because they've had multiple offers that they didn't win, right?
Yep.
So you can express sincere concern about that to them as you're reaching out and getting to know them in your messaging.
Yeah.
So, you may have testimonials from past clients where they're like, oh, what I love about this agent was they were so tenacious. They made sure to position my offer well so it would be accepted by the sellers. Well, that's great content to share. So, I know Mr. Mrs. whoever's reading this message, that a lot of buyers are frustrated now because the market's moving so fast. They're not able to get their offers accepted on homes. You should know that I have a, process or whatever it is. Like, I haven't interviewed someone to write this, but we're expressing sincere concern about an actual situation. Then we're positioning your particular strengths to serve well in that situation. And that was professional speaking there, Jared. Particular.
By the way, once again, man, we're so aligned. Like in our program, we teach people the best time to get a testimonial is whenever the hell something good happens. So you don't just wait until the closing because that's when they're most stressed, whatever. Anytime something good happens, you pick this thing up and you say, hey, would you tell them that I'm Superman, I wear a cape, and in this specific situation, you had this fear, but then I took care of this and whatever, go. And then they say the exact same thing. Because the more of those testimonials that you have, we call it framing you.
Yeah.
You're framing yourself as the person to be able to solve the problem they're having or to alleviate the fear that they have, because you're able to pull, because you have such an influx of testimonials, you're able to pull one specific to what that their pressure point, their fear is, their whatever, and it frames you as the person that, man, we were afraid we weren't going to be able to get into something, but Jared was so tenacious. Like, I can't imagine if we had worked with another age, whatever. So that's like framing. So you're saying that you need to, in this time, be speaking to, whatever fear it is they have, or whatever, uncertainty they have.
So we started out talking about how, we've got 2 people in the database. One of them really knows you, one of them doesn't. Okay. The shared observation technique works well with that person who knows you because you've already got rapport established with them. Like, if I'm a brand new Zillow lead and I get a message about Elon Musk's truck, like, that's confusing to me. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Then, what you're saying here in this situation is exactly the same thing. Your unique market conditions have to be taken into consideration for your messaging to work. I can write a fantastic message that will absolutely pull and crush it for an agent in a particular situation. You might want to read that message and use it in your situation, and it might not work at all.
You got to contextualize it.
Yeah, you have to.
You got to follow the tenets, so to say, but you got to contextualize it to your individual market. And that's why a national or international company that's just selling you, here's the one for February, here's the one for March, it doesn't really work because everything is really localized.
Yeah. Yeah, and personally, I'm not a fan of the once a month communication that vomits all sorts of stats of what's going on in the market on top of your database.
Like, here's a
Because,
recipe to make whatever.
well, you're communicating stuff that everybody else is, and you're robbing them of the opportunity to speak with you.
And it's not
Oh,
and more importantly, it's not a call to conversation either.
right.
It's
You're giving
just
the
what they
reader a
can get
chance
from
to
anywhere.
say, thank you for sharing all that great data with me. Now I don't need you. Like, I have the information. I don't need to talk to you. And again, if you're not in conversation with them, you're not in relationship.
That's right.
So that's where you're leaving room for another agent who wants to actually talk with them, who shows them that there's value in the relationship, even without necessarily having an immediate commission opportunity. That's the agent that's really dangerous to you. That's the one that can sneak in the back door and take your business away.
So the goal end recipe, whatever you want to call it, is relationship, and the secret sauce is conversation.
Yes.
That's grandma's secret sauce.
Yeah.
That's why her meatloaf is better than anyone's. It's because the relationship is established by the conversation.
Well, I mean, it gets even, you can break it down to a numerical recipe. Like, let's take the number of transactions an agent wants to have.
Yeah.
Set that as the goal they've got to get to. Well, what's going to make that happen? It's opportunities, right? Leads. Well, where do the best opportunities come from? Relationships. Where do relationships live? In conversation. How do you start conversation? You ask questions, calls to conversation, right? I mean,
there was a study, 41 real estate related conversations equals one transaction. Like, there was an actual study on this. Like, the more conversations you have, 41, and by the way, if you're better at it, it's going to be less. If you're not as good at it, it's going to be more,
right.
But like, on average, 41 real estate related conversations equals one transaction. And so the goal is when you look at, what ultimately matters, it's conversation. So that's why you're doing call to conversation, and you're trying to, send out this stuff that says, poses a question that's familiar and says, what do you think? Or, hey, I've got this that you don't have, and I'm going to be able to give it to you. Just reply to, whatever it is. Conversation. That's the secret sauce.
That's it. And that's where relationships live. And relationships are what we need to achieve our goals.
If a couple's
not the story of my life, Jared. Starting with nothing, and building multiple multi-million-dollar companies, it's not anything other than relationship that's allowed that to happen. Every step of the way is explained by it.
If a couple's not talking, they're not in relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If friends aren't talking, they're not in relationship. Like, it's really that simple. It's all about the conversation.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, if we can just kind of narrow it down to, all right. So last thing I want to ask you, what or who do you follow, watch, listen to, whatever, during this time to pull on inspiration? Who has been your, the people that you kind of like, follow or listen to? Like, who are your peeps?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I should just like pull up my podcast list here. Yesterday, like, my glamorous life, I'm cleaning out my garage, right? And while I'm cleaning out the garage, I'm listening to the Story Brand podcast. And, Donald Miller, I feel like, wow, he has given a framework and a structure to so much of what I've seen be effective for me in serving my clients. Like, I highly recommend you expose yourself to his stuff. It's really, really great. Phil Jones, another author, he wrote a book called Exactly What to Say. Great book. And my friends, Chris Smith and Jimmy Mackin, released the real estate version of that book a few months back. There's really good stuff in there. So, that's all content that's worth following. And I also like to really look outside. Like, there's something said, by looking outside of your industry, outside of your place, like, the more you can pull in from other places, I think sometimes you get insights from places you could just never expect. So, I love to read biographies. I love to listen to biographies.
By the way, that I've said many times on this, that's my thing too. I love biographies. Are you still reading them? Are you doing like Audible, or what are you doing?
Yeah, Audible is my jam. As you know, I live on a horse farm, so there's always like work to do out there. And for years, you'll see me out on the zero turn or the tractor, and I'm listening to Audible. So love that stuff. There's an author named Mike Michalowicz I'll recommend. He's written a lot of books that move the needle for some folks. One of them called Profit First, I think is very revolutionary for a lot of small business owners. It's where rather than,
I listened to that last year.
What's that?
I said I listened to that last year.
Oh yeah, it's great stuff. He's written a book called Clockwork, where they actually did their first training event around clockwork here in Tampa. So I went and hung out at the event and had lots of great conversations with those guys. Really, really good, solid stuff there. And, there's some like long-term old classic stuff that I find myself going back to and reading like probably every 10 years or so. I pull out The Art of War.
Go
right?
Dog Go.
Yeah, or I look at Go Dog Go. Thank you. That's heavy stuff. The Greatest Salesman in the World, Og Mandino, right? I mean, there's like so much great stuff out there. In fact, a member of my board of advisors group has bought license to the Zig Ziglar library of content.
Yeah.
And, I was going back through a bunch of the old Zig stuff. And I'm like, some of that is so incredibly timeless.
Amazing.
Like
Amazing.
Wisdom is wisdom, right? It's survival.
Did I ever tell you about the time I got an email from him?
From Zig Ziglar?
From Zig Ziglar. I got an email, obviously, before he passed away. I'm friendly with a guy named Andy Andrews, who's written 9 New York Times bestsellers or something like that. And we met early on when I was like a nobody. I'm still a nobody, but I was like a nobody, like before, whatever. And I was doing like a breakout at something at, Remax, and he was the keynote. We went to some dinner together and we just hit it off, right? Mm-hmm. And so we hit it off, we get friendly. And then he starts showing my videos early on to Ziglar.
Yeah.
And wow. I get an email from Zig Ziglar saying, "Hey kid, Andy showed me your stuff. I really like it. Keep it up. It's something, I forget exactly what it was, whatever." And I'm looking at this like, is this real? Like, is this a joke? I got an email from Zig Ziglar, of all people.
So cool. Yeah, crazy. That's fantastic.
And about the only thing we have in common is alliteration. Zig Ziglar, Andy Andrews, Jared James, we needed the middle of the alphabet.
You got it covered, A to Z, with JJ in the middle.
It's exactly right. But
that's too cool.
That's awesome, man. I always like listening to what you're listening to, or hearing what you're listening to, or because you're always into certain stuff. You got me into years ago. You got me into just like spreadsheets and stuff about the business. I remember one year you were showing me all your spreadsheets on your business and all the different terms and everything for the churn rates when you're doing an MMR business and whatever. And I got so into that stuff. I've gotten so deep into that stuff that now my business is like every morning I'm looking at all of them. Like I'm looking at everything.
So I have to connect some dots here, right? Because Billy Harris put that into me, right? I passed it along to you.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what makes the world better, right? So like if there's a closing thought here, I want everyone to consider for just a moment that if you're a parent and you're raising your children, you're helping them navigate the world and become competent, confident adults, you're only able to do that inside conversation. Like that's where that happens, right?
Yeah.
If you're a world leader and you're trying to negotiate a trade policy, right? That only happens inside conversation.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're in love, that love only exists inside conversation. Like it is monumentally important. We're the only species on the planet that's been able to achieve like we have because of this thing called conversation. It's how we feed and get better and grow. So yeah, I don't care if we're starting a conversation about Elon Musk's crazy truck, right? What I care about is where does that conversation allow our relationship to go?
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't matter where the conversation starts. It matters where the relationship goes.
And who's in it. So, okay. So how can people connect with you?
Well, just hit me up at happygrasshopper.com. Pretty simple place to do that. Okay. Find me on Facebook, of course. You can also just join that Facebook group, which is What to Say Now. That's the group. And once again, we go live every 2 p.m. on Monday.
We posted the links and I tagged you here on Facebook. And are you on Instagram or anything?
I am at Dan Stewart HG. You can find me on Instagram there and on Twitter at Dan Stewart HG as well.
Awesome. Guys, hang out here a minute. One last time here before we close. If you want to win a James Vance, take a picture of this. Tag me on Instagram, Facebook at Jared James today with the hashtag Happy Hour with Jared James. We'll pick a winner in the next 24 hours. I want to say really quickly, thank you to my guest Dan on his 50th birthday. I feel like one of the best things you guys can do is because I think he just shared a ton of value with everybody. And you know, he runs a company, Happy Grasshopper, that's an amazing company. It's amazing at creating those conversations. So if you're not using it now, you should go check them out. Absolutely. But guys, do me a favor. Say thank you to Dan, say happy birthday to Dan, put it in the comments, guys. Just kind of say happy birthday and thank you for sharing so much wisdom with us. One of the greatest ways you can say thank you, by the way, is just hit that share and let's get his message out to more people. It doesn't cost you anything but a couple of seconds. So hit share, leave a comment, guys. And as I said, just kind of say thank you because I feel like there's some really tangible, amazing tips that were shared here. And then he's going to keep going with the, you know, what to say now in that group where every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, he's going to be, you know, just pouring into you guys. You know that I love people that just give value. We try to give a lot of value. So the least you can do is say thank you and share it with as many people as you can so that they can get that value too. So with that being said, Mr. Stewart, I love you, man.
AJ, I love you too, brother.
Happy birthday, 50. I seriously can't believe that I have 50-year-old friends. You know I love you to death, man. I wish we were in DC together. I hope we get to do NAR or something else. If not, I'm just coming to Tampa and we'll figure something out.
God, I could pull up all of our crazy picks from years past.
Oh, do you have crazy picks from years past?
Dude, of course I do.
Oh boy.
Of course I do.
Oh boy. Is this okay for is this gonna like put us off the air? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Oh, that's good, man. That's good. That's me, you, and John.
That was last year. 1 year ago today.
God, you look so young.
Hanging out in DC. I was young. I was only 49.
49. You look like you're in your 40s in that picture.
Yeah, I did. But those days are gone, man. It's all downhill for me now.
Long gone. You grew that beard?
Yeah. Here we are from a few years before that.
Look at that, man. That was the no beard look. No glasses?
Yeah, I know. I was young, man. Look at you, though. You haven't changed. Not a bit, because you're a vampire. What are you doing out in the light? It's going to melt. It's
the risk I'm willing to take. I actually have a bubble around me. They're for sale on Amazon with the whole epidemic. It's just bubbles everywhere. So
good plan.
Yeah.
Good plan. I'm looking for one more here real quick.
Are you looking for a specific one?
It's, I won't make your audience wait on me to find another embarrassing picture of you.
Oh, that wasn't embarrassing. That was just fine.
No, I mean when I was about to show. Ooh, it's embarrassing. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. All right, JJ, in all seriousness, I love you, brother. Thank you for having me on my birthday. I can't think of a more fun way to spend this time unless you, me, and Mangus were together with a parade of friends in the craziness of DC.
I can't believe we're not together on your birthday, but this will count a little bit. So hang on here a second. Everybody else, guys, thanks for watching, listening later on if this is on the podcast and stuff. Make sure you share this, comment, say thank you, say happy birthday, all that stuff, guys. Love you all. We'll talk to you soon.